Okay, we gotta have a conversation about this. That for the last few days, from last week when I started working on the doll, that as she was doing okay, and I ended up coming into an issue where it seemed like that the loop was being blocked on her Mobi, and I couldn't be able to get the Mobi synthesizer and the servo arrays to show up in the serial monitor. Well, it would show up in the serial monitor, but it wouldn't be able to trigger the interrupts to the for loops or the nested loops, and it would just be stuck. And I tried it also with the flex sensor, and similar things would happen where both the servo and the sensor would show up in the serial monitor, but it just wouldn't trigger it. So I started doing some research. Well, I found some stuff called FreeRTOS that seemed to be pretty good, and it seemed to sit there and be able to tell me some stuff that I didn't know before, but it just seemed like it's not really doing what it was supposed to. If it offers here that this is what it's talking about, so I went through there and I studied it for a little while, and I keep coming up with issues on it. That, let me find the file here. I can't remember what I named it right this second. Let me see. I don't know if I saved it or not. But somewhere in here. I know I did. I'm sorry. Yeah, I never actually made a skit with it. Here it is, FreeRTOS. It comes up with the examples here. If you look at it, it will come up and it looks something like this, where the FreeRTOS goes through, and it's going to go through and it's going to give you a task. This is to a blink, so you're probably going to use an LED with it. I think it's the LED on the board, not necessarily an LED that you're putting on it, but it will go through the exercises and so forth and so on. Okay, I'm saying all this to say that when looking into it, it just seemed like the point is that you have to go through the registers of the board itself. And I was thinking you're supposed to be going through the registers of the Arduino Uno. And if you look at it, the Arduino Uno is going to have a 16-bit chip. So you're going to have, I guess, the registers to that. And it's not that very much. And then it'll sit there and say that maybe the Arduino ain't quite that big or so that everybody's trying to talk bad about the Arduino Uno. But then they'll start preaching about the STM32, and that's the point where I want to have it on this conversation, on this video. Okay, that the STM32, I've looked into the STM32, and if you look at it, okay, the STM32, it will sit there and have your 32 bits, and it's gravy, and that sounds great. It's gonna have some stuff, okay, and it's fairly impressive and everything, and it's 32 bits, and I even went out and I bought a book on it, so I'm all into it. And this STM32 was doing great. I'm thinking I'm fixing to learn some stuff, It's going into the registers. It's teaching me STM32 has a Linux kernel. Everything was going great. Maybe if I could put that with a FreeRTOS, we'd be able to get somewhere. I'm trying to figure out the difference between the FreeRTOS and a state machine, whether I use both of them at the same time or whether or not they're separate. That's a conversation for a different day. But this our STM32 was going to be the thing. I was ready to go out there and buy a new board. I was going to try to put the Movi hat on it. It was going to be great. And then last night I came into something, and this is what this video is all about. Okay, let's go over. Okay, here's the hat here. Okay, and if I could be able to zoom in on this, let's see if we can get it. It's not going to do it. Where I wanted to sit there and show the name of this board. And it's not going to show up in this lighting of this room right this minute. Completely blank. The point being, it's not really showing up the lighting right now. But the point is the A11 chip. And just to be able to prove what I'm sitting there talking about, let's go back over here to what we're doing. It's called a AllWinner A13 chip. Okay, I was just curious. I was curious on this. What is the A13 chip sitting on this? Okay, Movi Audeme is. Not really 100% sure. Okay. So, I started searching. I sit there and find the answer to what this Movi Audeme chip is. Okay. And this is and Google search is on suck right now. You look at it, this is where it's not faded like mine is. It has an A13 chip on it. And it's an AllWinner Tech chip. So, curious person I am, I went and tried to find a spreadsheet on this thing. So, I found the AllWinner Tech A13 manual. I got it, and this is what, remember, book that I bought, okay? Book, okay, and it's like you can find it all through YouTube videos and stuff, where it's going to go through. It's going to tell you about the microcontrollers. It's going to go through and tell you all that good stuff. And the point is always going back to the registers. How to dig into the registers, how to set timing the registers. So on this, so I'm thinking the STM32 is the greatest thing the world ever created. Okay, but then here comes the A13. The A13, and it goes through, and it's going to sit there and go through here, PMU, BF table registers, and then here we are, PMU speed factor register 2, CPU idle control registers, overclock clock tree diagram, CCM register list, pull one core, and then it goes through and it tells you all the default of the hex or the assembly deal that they got going on there, which one you'd want to go to under your register. and it goes on page and page and page of this. This would be a long video if I go through all of this right now, but to make a long story short, this is just table of contents. Interrupt fast force register, interrupt response register, interrupt response register, interrupt mask registers, interrupt source priority. Okay, and then it goes through, and it's going to even NFC timing diagram, TWI control registers, TWI slave address register, TWI extend registers, TWI data registers. It just goes on. And SPI registers, SPI-RX data registers, SPI interrupt control, SPI wait clock, UART registers. It goes on and on and on like this, okay? And it will be here forever if I go through all this. You could literally make an entire library out of this, or at least make an entire video lesson. 32.461 in just the table of contents alone. That's a lot of registers. And so to make a long story short, the AllWinner A13 that I literally have sitting on the top of this Movi board is a 64-bit processor. It has a Linux kernel on it that equals, if not better, it's literally twice as much as STM32 that only has 32 bits in it, and it has the Linux kernel, and that's the big sell of the STM32, which would be book one. The processor sitting on top of the Movi on the doll is twice as much as that chip. And this is where the real complaint comes in the picture. And the stuff you're going to go through, you're going to get a bunch of tutorials on how great STM32 is and everything. It's really awesome. They're going to teach you how to do all the stuff with the registers, dual cores, and so forth. But let's do this. And if we go AllWinner A13, you get a bunch of stuff on tablets. That basically is a tablet processor sitting on top of that Movi Audeme. But, and here's the point. The Movi speech synthesizer, Arduino. And it's going to go through, it's going to give you basically the same videos. That nobody's acknowledged that there's an A11 chip sitting on top of that Movi Audeme. Okay? It has nothing but packed out, and it's actually pretty much used outside the Movi Audeme as a processor that goes into literally pads. Digital pads are equivalent to like knockoffs of the iPad or Samsung pad. That it has the ability to be able to push the technology of the actual pad itself, and I think it's even been used maybe in some knockoff smartphones. So basically you got a chip on there that's basically twice as much as anything than the STM32, and nobody talked about it, nobody pushed that in all the videos on YouTube and all the tutorials around the Movi Audeme. Even the Movi Audeme site itself doesn't even go over the A13 chip sitting on it. which is mind-boggling to me. Why would you not sit there and go through the A13 chip when you're the very people who made the Audeme, the Movi Audeme itself, and that's a bigger push, and we have no idea the level of stuff you could be able to do with that chip. Consider entire books on the STM32, and the A13 is twice the chip than what the STM32 is, and it has this Linux kernel also, and it pushes twice the amount of bits that the STM32 pushes. So how come nobody's talking about this A13 and how you get that on the Movi Audeme, and how you barely get 5 minutes worth of reading or 5 minutes worth of learning on any tutorial around the Movi Audeme when it's sitting with a chip on it that's literally designed for literally practically iPads or Samsung pads type setups, that you're basically sitting the technology on that should be 10 times, 1,000 times anything that we know of what that Movi Audeme can actually do. You're basically sitting that thing on top of Arduino Uno, and practically putting Arduino Uno on steroids by sticking literally an A13 chip on top of it, the 64-bit processor and the Linux kernel that literally none of the Movi Audeme tutorials go anywhere near that, and nobody talks nothing about that, but they want to push STM32 everywhere else as being the way to up it. But that just raised so many different questions and more questions than answers, and the point is what started all this was trying to find a way to be able to run the timers actually in the actual registers, to be able to run multiple servos the way I want to without it being blocked and without the interrupt actually blocking it. And I think this is on it. I just learned this in literally the last maybe 24 to 72 hours that this information has come up. So I'm still trying to do more research on it and still trying to figure out the details to it, but there's a lot to cover, and it really mind boggles me that nobody's actually covered this already. This was made back in 2017, and yet nobody's actually pointed out there's an A13 chip sitting on top of this Movi Audeme. That's literally twice the chip that an STM32 is, and that being able to time your registers would be able to be awesome in that. And that's probably even just a fraction of what that chip can actually do and what that Movi Audeme can be able to do. But if this finds the right people, maybe they can make some tutorials with some real tutorials around the Movi Audeme instead of what we've been getting that's basically nothing to what that board can actually be capable of doing, and that board's not getting the attention that it actually deserves. Okay.